Welcome to another End Times Bible study. I'm Giselle Aguiar, and my purpose with these short story-like studies is to make Bible prophecy easy to understand. Today I cover Ezekiel's vision of God's final temple. This is the Millennial temple, the fourth temple built by God versus the third temple built by man. There are links in the description below to Bible studies so you can dig deeper. Please like and share this video and subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss future studies. First, let's go over a short history of Hebrew worship, and you'll find these stories in the Old Testament. While the Israelites were wandering in the desert, they had the tabernacle or tent of meeting, which was mobile. Once they reached the promised land, the tabernacle was located in Shiloh. Once King David came to reign, he brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, yet it was housed in a tent. He wanted to build a beautiful temple, but God told him that he would not build it, but his son would. Enter Solomon, who built a very opulent temple. And it was destroyed by Babylon in 586 BC, and all the temple treasures were stolen. The Ark of the Covenant disappeared. After the 70-year exile, the Jews returned to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, but it was a shack compared to Solomon's. In the first century or thereabouts, King Herod, wanting to look good for the Jews, enlarged the temple and made it better. This is where Jesus taught. It's the temple that he cleansed from the vendors and where he preached in the Olivet Discourse that no stone would be left on top of each other, that it would be destroyed. And that prophecy was fulfilled in 70 AD when the Romans destroyed the Second Temple. Currently, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has planned to build a third temple. Now, this is the one the Antichrist will desecrate. It will supposedly be built to the same specifications as Solomon's temple. Now, the fourth and final temple is the Millennial temple that Ezekiel describes in chapters 40 to 47. They will give you an idea of the size and scope of the temple from where King Jesus will rule and be high priest. If you like architecture and design, you'll get a kick out of all of the specs, but I won't go into that much detail here. God gave this vision to Ezekiel, who was still in exile, so that he could give the Jews hope. It is our hope today for born-again believers to look forward to. Here's a little bit of the description from Ezekiel 41, starting in verse 21. There were square columns at the entrance to the sanctuary, and the ones at the entrance of the most holy place were similar. There was an altar made of wood, 5¼ feet high and 3½ feet across. Its corners, base, and sides were all made of wood. This, the man told me, is the table that stands in the Lord's presence. Now, Ezekiel had a tour guide, which could very well have been a pre-incarnate Jesus. Continuing in verse 23. Both the sanctuary and the most holy place had double doorways, each with 2 swinging doors. The doors leading into the sanctuary were decorated with carved cherubim and palm trees, just as on the walls. And there was a wooden roof at the front of the entry room to the temple. On both sides of the entry room were recessed windows decorated with carved palm trees. The side rooms along the outside wall also had roofs. Now, here are some key points. God gave this vision to Ezekiel 14 years after the destruction of Solomon's temple. Now, he'd been in exile for 25 years. There's an increase in holiness as one goes deeper inside the temple. It will have very thick walls and large areas to separate what is holy from what is common or profane. It will be similar to Solomon's temple, but simple in decoration. This is holiness embodied in a structure. God's glory returns. Ezekiel 43:1. After this, the man brought me back around to the east gateway. Suddenly the glory of God, of the God of Israel, appeared from the east. The sound of his coming was like a roar of rushing waters. The whole landscape shone with his glory. This vision was just like the others I had seen, first by the Kibar River and then when he came to destroy Jerusalem. I fell face down on the ground, and the glory of the Lord came into the temple through the east gateway. Then the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner courtyard, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple, and I heard someone speaking to me from within the temple, while the man who had been measuring stood beside me. The Lord said to me, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place where I will rest my feet. I will live here forever among the people of Israel. They and their kings will not defile my holy name any longer by their adulterous worship of other gods, or by honoring their relics, the relics of their kings who have died. They put their idol altars right next to mine, with only a wall between them and me. They defiled my holy name by such detestable sin. So I consumed them in my anger. Now let them stop worshiping other gods and honoring the relics of their kings, and I will live among them forever. Son of man, describe to the people of Israel the temple I have shown you, so they will be ashamed of all their sins. Let them study its plan, and they will be ashamed of what they have done. Describe to them all the specifications of the temple, including its entrances and exits and everything else about it. Tell them about its decrees and laws, or write down all these specifications and decrees as they watch, so they will be sure to remember and follow them. And this is the basic law of the temple, absolute holiness. The entire top of the mountain where the temple is built is holy. Yes, this is the basic law of the temple. End quote. Here are some key points. Ezekiel saw a reversal of chapters 1 and 10, where he watched God's glory leave Solomon's beautiful temple in Jerusalem. Right after that, Jerusalem was sacked by the Babylonians and the temple was plundered and burned. This final temple is built to perfect proportions so that people would be ashamed of their past actions. In other words, God hates all types of idolatry. And in the millennial kingdom, there will not be any mosque, Orthodox, or Catholic church in all of Israel. All idolatry will be gone. And God plans everything to the littlest detail. He does pull the strings of history. We jump to Ezekiel 47:1, quote, In my vision, the man brought me back to the entrance of the temple. There I saw a stream flowing east from beneath the door of the temple and passing to the right of the altar on its south side. The man brought me outside the wall through the north gateway and led me around to the eastern entrance. There I could see the water flowing out through the south side of the east gateway. Ezekiel continues in verse 6. He, the Lord, asked me, quote, Have you been watching, Son of Man? Then he led me back along the riverbank. When I returned, I was surprised by the sight of many trees growing on both sides of the river. Then he said to me, This river flows east through the desert into the valley of the Dead Sea. The waters of the stream will make the salty waters of the Dead Sea fresh and pure. There will be swarms of living things wherever the water of this river flows. Fish will abound in the Dead Sea, for its waters will become fresh. Life will flourish wherever this water flows. Fishermen will stand along the shores of the Dead Sea, all the way from En-Gedi to Eneglaim. The shores will be covered with nets drying in the sun. Fish of every kind will fill the Dead Sea just as they fill the Mediterranean. But the marshes and swamps will not be purified. They will still be salty. Fruit trees of all kinds will grow along both sides of the river. The leaves of these trees will never turn brown and fall, and there will always be fruit on their branches. There will be a new crop every month, for they are watered by the river flowing from the temple. The fruit will be for food, and the leaves for healing. Wow. Imagine that. The Dead Sea, the saltiest body of water in the world, will come to life. Right now, nothing can live in its waters because it's so salty. Hence, it's called the Dead Sea. Only God can accomplish this miracle. It's a promise to look forward to when King Jesus returns to make everything new. This will happen after the Great Tribulation. And you can see this in Revelation 19 through 22. And believe me, you do not want to be around for the tribulation. You want the assurance that you'll see this beautiful temple and be refreshed by the living waters. Yes, Jesus is coming back, and he's coming back not to America, not to Rome, not to Iran, but to Israel, specifically to Jerusalem. He will make everything new again. However, the rapture of his born again believers happens first. Jesus will come and get us so we don't experience his wrath during the 7 years of the Great Tribulation. The rapture is imminent. That means it could happen at any time. Are you ready? You're ready if you're a born again, saved believer. If you're not sure if you're saved or not, if you truly want to be born again and have the assurance of salvation, receive the Holy Spirit, feel his shalom, a peace that surpasses all understanding, and get a one-way, non-stop ticket to heaven after you die, or that you won't be left behind at the rapture, which again can happen at any moment. Invite Jesus into your heart and receive the gift of the Holy Spirit. Click on the link below that says How to Know Jesus. Soli Deo Gloria, to God alone be the glory.